I'm Matt Newman. I work for Covanta, and I chaired the Business and Environmental Resources Task Force this year for the Chamber. Environmental regulations impact all businesses, and it's really a quality of life and economic development issue. We all need land and water and clean air, and we need economic development opportunities, so environmental regulations impact all of those. On the state level, energy security. We need domestic energy, domestically produced energy, energy efficiency, renewable energy, a robust transmission grid, electricity transmission grid, and public access to CNG, compressed natural gas. Our second issue is monitoring water regulations. We do all need clean water. Even though we had a tremendous amount of rainfall, we will be in a drought sometime in the future. Looking at efficient use of water, even reuse of effluent water for industrial purposes, will help the whole region in managing and enjoying our water resources. Green space, a gathering place, what a fantastic addition to Tulsa. We need to keep that momentum. Green space and forest or urban forest canopy, increasing our forestry canopy in the city is not only a quality of life, but it also helps us with economic development. On a federal slate, restricting federal regulations, empowering our elected officials to put in place a metric of economic impacts to regulations, a cost-benefit analysis. Approach these things balancing people, profit, and planet, which is the sustainability definition, but regulations are needed, but we really should take into account all of the economic impacts associated with those regulations. The United States EPA wants to tighten ozone levels in many cities in the United States. Imposing this new level on Tulsa will impact our ability to do economic development or encourage economic development. It could push Tulsa into what's called a non-attainment area, which has compliance cost issues and economic development issues, and we've made tremendous progress to date. We don't need these regulations. The final federal issue is opposing EPA's overreach in managing water and waterways. We have a vibrant Oklahoma Department of Environmental Quality. They do a fantastic job. We need to oppose EPA's reach into our state's business.
Hi, I'm John Feary, and I am with the City of Owasso, Government Affairs Director, and I chaired the Development, Economy, and Taxes Task Force for the OneVoice process this year. These issues pertain to both small business, municipalities, large business, all areas of industry, and they're vital to the economic success of every industry in both the public and private sector. Both of them must have viable, maintainable, and sustainable infrastructure as well as incentives. Municipal diversification in Oklahoma is important because currently municipalities only have one source of income for operations, and that's sales tax. Another very key issue to Oklahoma is the modernization of Oklahoma's adult beverage laws. It's time that these antiquated laws are updated. Some of the key issues on that particular point are eliminating the distinguishment between low point and strong beer, as well as creating a market environment for Oklahoma's distilleries, producers, and wineries to sell to consumers on the free market. Tax credits and tax incentives must be protected when they have shown to be viable and show a return on the investment that the state of Oklahoma has made. These credits and incentives are absolutely imperative for existing businesses to grow and at the same time incenting new businesses into the state of Oklahoma while creating jobs, building rooftops, and putting more wealth into the Oklahoma economy, especially here in the Tulsa region. Collection of online sales tax, also known as the Main Street Fairness Act. It is important that federal legislation be enacted in the near future so that we can protect our local businesses and allow them to be competitive with out-of-state and online retailers. The DET Task Force also supports the Arkansas River Corridor Development Area. It is imperative for this area with such a natural resource that we allow it to develop by accessing and using the accrual of federal match grants to promote and construct the infrastructure needed. The Arkansas River Development Area will absolutely provide new jobs, new industry, and economic diversity into the Tulsa area. And thirdly, the DET task force focused on the American Indian Land Tax Credit, with over 2/3 of Oklahoma's land being eligible for this tax credit. We believe that the long-term support and sustainability of these tax credits must be enacted in order to continue to promote economic development and bringing jobs into the state of Oklahoma.
Hi, I'm Lee Goodson, and I'm president of Tulsa Community College. This year I chaired the OneVoice Task Force on Education and Workforce. One of our largest task forces, Education and Workforce, focuses on not only educating our young people and qualifying them to be successful in the work world, but it also focuses on what our small businesses and corporations need in order to be successful in their business, and that's a qualified workforce. The first state issue that we addressed was looking at Oklahoma's teacher shortage, and with pay being lower than it is in some of our regional neighbors and other states, it is difficult for Oklahoma to attract and retain good teachers. Having excellent teachers in every classroom is critical to our workforce development and critical to our students being career and college ready as they graduate from high school. The second state issue that the Education and Workforce Task Force decided on was to simplify graduation requirements for our graduating students by replacing our currently mandated end of instruction tests with the ACT test. This not only allows us to compare our students on a national basis, but it also simplifies our testing process so that our teachers can spend more time on instruction. The third issue we're presenting today is that of robust academic standards, and in order for our students to succeed, we need to be teaching them at a high level so they'll be ready for the workforce and ready for college. On the federal side, we support the reauthorization and replacement of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, which most people know as the No Child Left Behind Act, as well as the Higher Education Act, and fully funding the federal mandates associated with both of those acts. We also support the reform of federal financial aid to allow more of our students in industry-driven training to benefit from financial aid in order to address some of the workforce shortages we have in our high-demand workforce needs. And finally, we support the continuation of the Perkins Career and Technical Education Grant. Critical to our regional workforce development are the technical education programs we have across the state.
Hi, I'm Don Burdick, Vice President of Geology at Panther Energy, and I was the chair of the Energy Task Force. The Energy Task Force this year, I think, has more importance than it may have had in prior years, and I think everyone here in the audience knows why. We have seen the benefit of low oil prices and that it's cheaper for us to go to the pump and fill up our gas tanks. But we've seen the negatives as well, especially here in Oklahoma and in the Tulsa region. Our number one issue involves compressed natural gas. And having vehicles run on CNG is just a very logical, common sense sort of thing. This fuel is so powerful, so helpful to our economy. Let's just get them out there, but let's keep them safe. Have the inspection process, the certification process, make sure all these vehicles honor it, that we don't have exemptions to that. 811, a call before you dig program. It's a simple thing. Just don't dig holes in the ground where you've got pipelines of any kind without calling that first. You'll get a quick response, and it'll make sure that we don't destroy an infrastructure that's important to our energy systems here in Oklahoma. When it comes to energy, we've all seen a strong push towards new regulations or concerns about over-regulation, and I think we as Oklahomans can all understand that let's make sure that the benefit we may receive is equal to or exceeds the cost we're going to impose on any new regulation. We have seen an extreme overreach by the EPA in terms of regulation. The Clean Water Act and the implications that's going to have to not just energy, but in particular energy is fairly significant. U.S. producers are at a disadvantage in terms of selling their product. We've got to open U.S. producers to the world markets. And for those of you who are concerned about gasoline prices, you need to know gasoline is already exported to the world markets. We send it, we refine it, we ship it overseas. It will not increase your gasoline costs, but it will help bring more money to domestic producers so that job loss, like we've seen in the last few months, doesn't continue. Our third issue that made it to our top three is the idea of state regulation on energy, all energy issues over federal. We really think that at the state level, Oklahomans know Oklahoma's economy and infrastructure and environmental concerns better than a one-size-fits-all federal government approach. So whereas there are times when national regulations make sense, when it comes to energy issues, we strongly believe that the more we can do at the state level, the better we're going to be in both protecting the environment and protecting jobs.
Hello, I'm Devonna Haslam, and I am the Vice President of Administration and Human Resources for Mazio's, which is based here in Tulsa. We have to have a workforce that is capable and that is available and that is employable for us, and then that employers can be able to employ them, pay them effectively, reward them effectively, so that we have a growing economy. We have one of the highest incarceration rates in the nation, and that disadvantages Oklahoma because we have more of our people in prison that could really be working, especially nonviolent offenders. We would like to see there be efforts put forth to evaluate and change how we are managing offenses so that people who can work and meaningfully contribute to the economy are able to. Preserve workers' compensation reforms. These reforms have been vital to Oklahoma business in making sure that we are treating employees fairly when they're injured and getting them back to work, but also making sure that employers get a fair shake. When you have an individual who is in a situation where there's maybe some domestic violence or other issues that are causing danger for them, the employer has an obligation to protect the safety of all employees. And employers need a mechanism to make sure that we can say, hey, you can't come to our place of employment either. And right now, employers can't do anything to prevent that violent person from coming on site. Our first federal issue for the Labor and HR Task Force is the issue of FLSA reform. That's Fair Labor Standards Act, and it came out of the Great Depression. The intent of the law was to put as many people to work as possible in as fair conditions as possible. What we would like the Department of Labor to do is to think about some different ways to consider what does compensation mean, and we want them to give us enough time to implement. We would like the federal government to make immigration make sense. Right now, the process is so complicated. We understand there's illegal immigration and there are undocumented workers, but part of that is because the process is completely broken. We'd like to see the federal government make changes so that it's possible for people to get into this country legally in an efficient manner for employers to be able to put them to work and further our economy. Fund the Workforce Investment and Opportunity Act. It creates a mechanism to retool the workforce so that we always have people with the skill sets we need that we can employ. If we don't have employees, we don't have production in a growing economy. And so funding the Workforce Investment and Opportunity Act is that mechanism that helps us keep people employable throughout their lives.
My name's John Stava. I own Stava Building Corporation and have been in business in Tulsa for over 40 years. 80% of all the members in the chamber are small business people. And small business accounts for 55,000 jobs in Tulsa and a $1.6 billion payroll. So it's vital really to the interests of Oklahoma. Maintaining the same level of funding for OCAST. OCAST functions primarily in supporting entrepreneurs, ideally in the area of the STEM program, which is science, technology, engineering, and manufacturing. And that support, we feel like, is really key to the increased level of business in Oklahoma. We feel like that the unemployment insurance reform needs to be more fairly judged, in that there is always a dispute between labor and management with regard to unemployment insurance. This is something that needs to be looked at, I think, and reorganized. There are a number of workforce programs that relate to science, technology, engineering, and manufacturing that need to be emphasized. And we'd like, if there is any money available, we'd like to encourage the legislature to fund these workforce programs. The first federal priority was the ACA. The ACA in 2016 has levied additional reporting requirements on the small business person. It's also changed the definition of a full-time employee. We're just asking that the legislature look at reducing whatever requirements there are on the small businessman and eliminating them as much as possible. The reauthorization of the Import and Export Bank, which has gone dormant since 2015 when it was allowed to die by legislation. There are 100 companies in the state of Oklahoma that benefit by being able to export and finance and receive the support from the federal government. That actually returns money to the federal government. It's an actually money-making program. You know, requesting that the federal government really homogenize the definition of the 1099 employee. Right now there are different definitions by different organizations. We'd like to simplify and just make it consistent throughout the government. It's necessary for small business to be able to accurately define that.
Hi, my name is John Hewitt. I'm President and CEO of Matrix Service Company, and I was the chair this year for the Regional Tourism Task Force. As we like to say in the business, clicking the cash registers to drive taxes and income for our service industry here in town, and all that, again, those tax dollars and those employees' money that are tied into hotels and restaurants and the venues here all drive back to eventually to quality of life issues for our employees and the employees of all the companies here in the region. Self-determination of facility firearm policy, so we think it's important that the facility owners themselves should have the right to determine whether people should be able to carry a firearm into their venues. And number two is a tourism improvement district within a downtown corridor is really critical for Tulsa to compete in the markets in which we compete. And our ability to really market and to sell the city of Tulsa and to really create the vibe within the city to bring those events into town is critical. Number three is public arts funding, Oklahoma Arts Council. Probably a big generational priority, I think, for a lot of younger professionals we have in the community. And I think the ability for the community to really fund and demonstrate and market the great art venues that we have in the Tulsa region is a real plus. Upgrade our air transportation system on a nationwide basis, and Tulsa is not unique to that. I think over time, federal dollars used to upgrade our air transportation system across the country has been lax. We have not been providing the upgrades we need, and so it's about the quality of air travel, the timeliness of air travel, the safety of air travel. The Page Belcher Federal Courthouse is part of the redevelopment work that's going on in the central core of Tulsa. That courthouse sits really in a really prime location of the city, near the BOK Center, near the Convention Center, and it would be a great opportunity for us to be able to take over that building and create high-end hotels, additional retail space, some office space, and tie that all together into sort of a central entertainment core. And then finally, historic tax credits. City of Tulsa is blessed with some very unique architectural structures, both commercially and residentially. And so we want to make sure that those federal tax credits continue to stay available for cities like Tulsa, that we can maintain those unique architectural assets.
I'm Rich Briere, Executive Director of INCOG. Well, transportation is really key to our economic development. Our roadway network is so important in terms of transporting people safely, not only to home, accessing goods and services, but linking our region with other regions and other markets throughout the country. Transportation funding is absolutely critical. Preserving, defending, and protecting the revenues that are devoted to transportation. A long-planned portion of our expressway system provides critical connections in the northwest portion of our community and our region, Sand Springs, Tulsa area. It really is a public safety issue. It's a game changer from an economic development standpoint. It provides increased access to the Port of Catoosa, a heavy haul route that major goods that are being shipped out of the Tulsa area through the Port of Catoosa can access that port more conveniently. Improved access along the Muskogee Turnpike in the rapidly growing Wagner County, Broken Arrow, Coweta area, and more particularly to the Armed Forces Reserve Center. There are simply no turnpike gates that provide convenient access, so as units are deployed from that center to throughout the state, access to the turnpike, access to some 1,400 people that may be there on a given weekend, that's important in that growing part of our region. McClellan Kerr Navigation Channel. This is part of the nation's marine highway system, if you will, marine waterway system. We're the most inland frost-free port. We serve a multi-state region, tremendous economic impact. It's an economic asset and driver. So we're 3,000 people employed at the port. And the challenge going forward is the maintenance of that facility. Pursuing designation of our Air National Guard 135th Fighter Wing by the Tulsa Airport for basing of the F-35. The F-35 is the new generation fighter jet. It is being deployed at the present time. Basing decisions are being made. If we're successful in that effort, we will have that responsibility and that opportunity for more than a generation. And demonstrated community support is essential to convey the importance of that to our community, that we might be successful in the next year in getting that designation. The federal government authorizes programs typically on a 6-year reauthorization bill and then appropriates funding based upon that. We have not had an authorization bill for a number of years. We've gone through 33 extensions, short-term fixes. They simply do not work. We need a long-term reauthorization bill. The Senate has acted upon that with the DRIVE Act. It's time for the Congress to do the same.
I'm Monica Basu. I work for the George Kaiser Family Foundation on our healthcare initiatives and priorities. Oklahoma is one of the unhealthiest states in the nation. The last count, we ranked 46th out of 50 on all health indicators. Insure Oklahoma and expanding Insure Oklahoma will be Oklahoma's solution to the healthcare problem. It's doing it our way, and it's also accepting federal funds to help us, getting over $9 billion back into our economy. Again, that's another area that Oklahoma stands far behind than other states. We have fewer physicians per capita than every other state in the union. And we need to have more physicians, and not just physicians, we need other mid-level practitioners to be everywhere in Oklahoma, especially in the rural areas, to make the workforce healthier. Well, we all know that mental health issues and substance abuse issues affect everybody. It's one of the reasons that crime is so high. And just overall, there just aren't enough treatment options for substance abuse and mental health, and we need to increase those. So funding to help increase those will help so many areas, including reduce crime and make just Oklahoma a better place to live. We need the feds to continue to fund residency slots. Graduate medical education is what gets us more doctors, and there aren't enough residency slots available for everyone to match. Our current Insure Oklahoma program is actually one of the best in the country. It's very innovative, and we have to continue to make sure the feds will fund even in its current form, even though the state has not accepted federal funds. For loan deferral and tuition reimbursement programs is also related to healthcare workforce. By providing more of those things, we'll have more doctors, and we'll have more students able to enter medical education, enter the medical workforce.